Beneath the tranquil surface of the friendly city of Port Elizabeth, a violent gang war is being waged, which has claimed the lives of not only gang members, but that of innocent bystanders. Despite numerous government interventions that included the setting up of a national task team and the deployment of the National Intervention Unit, the problem of street gangs continued to plague this community.
I saw him lying there, helpless. I didn't know, all I could think is how can I help him, how can I make him feel better?
Obviously there's always repercussions, there's always retaliations. So you slap me, I stab you. You stab me, I shoot you. You shoot me, I shoot you back more and harder with bigger firepower. You always come back stronger.
Tonight's special assignment counts the cost of the ongoing gang war in Port Elizabeth and profiles Malightas van Sonop, a new breed of gangs ready to do anything to affiliate with the 26 number in prison. On the 2nd of September 2014, this tavern in Galvandale, Port Elizabeth, became the scene of a violent crime. Successful tavern owner Julian Bartman is considered a pillar in the Galvandale community as a self-made entrepreneur and started his business called 147 from scratch. He is loved and respected by his wife and 2 daughters. At 1900 hours, the CCTV cameras outside his business show him leaving in his car to go to the supermarket. An hour later, at 8 o'clock, he is seen returning from the shops and gets out of the car. There's a lot of people outside the busy tavern, so he does not notice a young man approaching him from the street. Without any warning or words being exchanged, the teenage gang member draws a firearm and shoots him in the head. Julian Bartman died a few hours later in hospital. His eldest daughter, Melissa Bartman, still visits her father's grave every week and is battling to come to terms with the violent and senseless manner in which her dad was shot.
We had the gunshots go off. Then my brother said, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't hear nothing." I say, "I heard the gunshots," and I just began to froze. I just began to freeze. And they started running down. And it took me quite a second. Then I ran down. And as I'm running down, my sister's running towards the house. And she just screams, "Daddy, Daddy." And I'm like, "What isn't Daddy?" And then I went in and I just completely lost it. I saw him lying there, helpless. I didn't know, all I could think is how can I help him, how can I make him feel better? And I wanted to pull him and shake him, and he's trying to speak and he's trying to say something, and all you can see is just lying there, bleeding out, everybody surrounding him.
On the 13th of April 2015, another violent and tragic shooting takes place at 4 p.m. in Cobus Road outside Club 147, which is along a busy main road, literally 200 meters from the Galvandale police station. Denver Jacobs and Sean Jacobs were sitting in their car and drinking outside the tavern when they are approached in broad daylight by 2 unidentified young gang members and shot and killed execution style. The South African Police Service could not confirm that the incident is in fact gang-related, but the modus operandi of the shooting resembles that of a gang assassination. No arrests have been made as yet, and SABC is investigating the double homicide. The recent shooting, which closely resembles the manner in which her dad was shot, triggers an emotional reaction from Melissa. Three weeks earlier, in this very same cemetery in Galvandale, a 24-year-old young man is laid to rest. Car guard Aubrey Jonas and his brother Marlon were shot by gang members because a friend of theirs was allegedly involved in stealing a cell phone from a connected individual. Aubrey was shot 3 times and miraculously survived the incident. His brother Marlon was not as fortunate.
En het die kan gerig. Op so 'n manier het my broer net gevra, "Ga jy hulle skiet nou?" En het sy rug gedraai en het op pad in. Die eerste skoot het afgegaan. Hy was binne gewees. Toe ek myself herinner dat ek sal hulle oë moet op my kry, dat my broer moet sy vis. Die eerste koel wat geval het was, sal sien by my TV se kas, as 'n gat. Daai was die koel wat die onder my hart reg deur gaan na so.
On the day of his brother's funeral, Aubrey is still healing from the physical and emotional wounds and is battling to get closure. The gang members who shot him and his brother are known to him and his community.
En hoe voel het vandag dat jy jou broer begrawe? Hoe voel jy daaroor?
Ek voel glad nie. Nou sien ek voel nie dat dit was sy tyd gewees nie. So daarmee sê ek ook man. Ek voel nie dat al is dit die skieter se tyd ook wat dit inkom. Voel ek skaars hy moet die pyn deurgaan wat kan wonde sal maak in 'n mens se lewe nie.
Helensvale in Port Elizabeth is at the epicenter of the current gang war and has earned the nickname Katanga, named after the province of Katanga in the DRC, which is notorious for being a war zone. This area has more than 10 different gangs and 43 drug posts. Here, gang-related shootings are the order of the day, and the community lives in constant fear for their lives.
A speed bump is a road safety mechanism aimed at preserving life. This one could lead to death. It represents the invisible border between rival gang factions in Helensvale. Often in these ongoing turf battles, it is innocent onlookers that get caught in the crossfire, and sadly, it is the children that suffer.
Children being caught in gang crossfire has become so frequent in Helensvale that a few years ago, a memorial was erected. In 1 month, 8 people have been shot and injured in gang-related shootings, and over the past 3 years, there have been more than 27 fatalities. Most 9-year-olds in Helensvale play without a care in the streets. Clarissa Botha, not her real name, is an exception. She was playing in the street a few months ago when she was caught in a violent gang crossfire. A bullet that was meant for a gang member went right through her shoulder. Today, while her friends play in the street, she watches.
Kom en my rol laat oopgemaak en toe skiet hulle. Toe staan ek AUBREY rol laat en toe kom daar ook uit toe skiet hulle teer om my hand en teer my. Toe val ek.
Voel jy nog safe om te speel in die straat hier? Hoekom?
En it's scary.
Her mother, Ronel Botha, not her real name, became hysterical when she heard the gunshots.
Maar die boeler wat daar getref het, was hy boeler was klaar geslou. Hy klaar deur een se hand gegaan en toe deur haar gegaan. Hy was 'n sterk boeler wat daar geraak het. Dis 'n slou boeler dan. Ons klaar die dinge, sy moes klaar afgegee in hy hand en hy poeier. Toe gaan hy deur haar. As op so 'n manier wat sy survive. Was dit nie 'n slou bullet nie en sy nie survive.
As a mother of a 9-year-old daughter living meters from the borderline, she hopes and prays for peace among the gangs.
Hulle moet dit stopsit. Hulle moet vrede maak en dit los, die geskietery. Want is nou te veel, ons weet nie meer wie skiet teen wie nou nie.
According to the South African Police Service, there are currently 21 gangs that are operational in the Port Elizabeth area, and their numbers are increasing. In Helensvale, the core of conflict is between gangs that affiliate with Upstand Dogs and the Dust Lies. These gangs have splinter groups that are affiliated to them, namely the Nice Time BOSSA'S, the Nice Time Kids, and the New Kids. In our journey to understand the crux of the current gang war, we decided to talk to one of the gangs in the area and investigate what is the cause of the recent upsurge in gang-related shootings. As we enter the area of the Nice Time BOSSA'S or NTBs, we see the telltale signs that this is gang turf. Teenage gang members perched on the roof like soldiers in a war to see if any of their rivals are approaching the borderline. We are welcomed into the lair of the Nice Time BOSSA'S, who are about to smoke an ocker pipe as they indulge in one of their favorite pastimes. They agreed to speak to us on condition that we do not reveal their identity.
Hulle eerste kom begin skiet op ons, want dit hulle gaan plan, ons het ook nie terug gaan skiet weer na hier nie. Ons het maar gekyk en kom hulle aanhou tot ons ook so fed up geraak het sien. Wat ons ook maar nou terug, hulle beklei tot nou nog.
Nou wie is hulle?
As die New Kids nou weet ons nie waarvan af kom die ander bende nou nie.
These young men, many of them still teenagers, have become hardened gang members by the time they reach the age of 20. On almost a weekly basis, these Malightas van Sonop are involved in shootouts. At any time, they are ready to go to war, as one of them explains when he applies face paint to protect his identity.
Nee, het is voor die sunblock. Voor die zon. Maar baie van die hoekies hulle gebruik het ook om hulle te vermom en skietery soos hy.
Nou hoe werk dit as jy nou daai masker aan het? Is dit nou sodat die mense jou nie kan sien of identify nie?
Ja, dan is hy mos nie visible.
Spiker is a 16-year-old gangster affiliated with the NTBs. He joined the gang when he was 14. I wanted to know why at such a young age he decided to choose a life of gangsterism and what drives him to be a nice-time bossa.
Ek voel maar net om in die game te wees van hoekom ek my braser gesien val in die game. Dus hoekom ek staan nog in die game.
En hoe lang staan jy al in die game?
Ek is omtrent 2 of 3 jaar wat die goed aangaan. Die gunskietery voor hy was 'n klipgooier. Maar die gunskietery nou. En ek staan vir my braser wat geval het. Dus hoekom ek staan in die dinge. So dis my familie, die ken nie die mense afstaan.
Some of the members joined the gang from the age of 13, and by 16, they are hardened 26ers. During our investigation, we also meet Justin OLIPHANT, a community activist that works amongst the gangs and is striving to do something positive about the ongoing gang problem.
The law of the street dictates that you need to pick up the blood of your, your brothers or your loved ones or your fellow gang members or whatever, you call them. So obviously there's always repercussions, there's always retaliations. So you slap me, I stab you. You stab me, I shoot you. You shoot me, I shoot you back more and harder with bigger firepower. You always come back stronger. So the challenge on the street is, it's not a case of, things happening in isolation. So unfortunately, the fact that about 8 people have been shot in the last couple of days just means that it could just get worse.
For the past 10 years, he has been working in the areas most affected by gangsterism in PE, namely Galmondale, Shoreville and Helenvale. He has set up a youth centre that is aimed at giving young people in the northern areas an alternative to gangsterism.
Yeah, what we do at Endangered Species is we try and empower young people by, teaching them skills, but skills which we know and which we have acquired ourselves. It's not easy getting people to volunteer on a full-time basis to help young people. So what we do currently is we've got a sewing program, we've got a basic computer literacy program, and then we do basic filmmaking, digital video and filmmaking classes where we teach kids everything from camera operating, editing, pre-production, scripting, etc. And then we've got a little recording studio on our premises where we also teach kids the basics of music production. And we get young people to come in and share, their voice, discover their voice. And we try and push positive messaging onto the street from the studio.
Since 2010, Justin has been working closely with the gangs in Port Elizabeth as a mediator and a peacemaker. And in 2012, the first peace treaty was established between the Boomshakas, the Untouchables and the Invisibles. This peace treaty, however, was short-lived, and after a few months of no gang shootings, the violence resurfaced. As part of the intervention and mediation work that Justin does, he believes that one of the reasons for the recent upsurge in gang violence is due to the fact that the gang members in Port Elizabeth are becoming younger and younger.
Look here, we've got child soldiers. It's just they're not fighting a civil war, they're fighting in gangs. We've got kids caught up in child labor. It's just they're not sitting in a factory, they're dealing drugs. They're stealing cars. They're working for criminal syndicates. So we've got a challenge which needs to be looked at. And we've had an upsurge in youth involvement in gangsterism. I mean, we've got kids as young as 13 who are caught up in this current gang war. If you have to interview gang members, you will see that the majority of the guys who are actively involved range in age from about 19 to about 22, 23. In the last couple of weeks, majority of the kids killed were under the age of 25.
The next gang we speak to are known as the Nice Time Kids. In this gang, the gang members seem even younger, and are also striving to make their way up the ranks. The Nice Time kids are affiliated to the Nice Time BOSSA'S and are considered the foot soldiers.
Hoekom het die peace nie gehou nie?
En was baie van hulle broers of neers wat saam die NTK's uit saam in die hoekies en so wat in ontwikkel. Nou hulle mense hier op soveel kan en so manier dat ons hulle sien soos mense hulle skien mekaar dood. Nou gaan ek nooit jongens los met my broer dood te skiet of so in my neef dood te skiet. Hom ook indringen.
They believe that the peace will not happen because of the increase of new gangs in the area and the constant battle for turf.
Nou wat te maak, dan kom die hoekies op en dan kom skiet hulle hier so zijn. Maar ons gaan nie aan te sê om te gaan skiet dan. Ons is net hier by ons plek. Dan kom hulle op, dan kom skiet hulle. Ek weet nie hoekom kom skiet hulle nie. Hulle sien dan ons doen van hulle niks.
En as hulle kom skiet, wat doen julle?
Ons doen niks nie. Ons gaan staan maar net agter of gaan in die huis in. Of ons gaan rook, soos hy is al.
As julle geleentheid gehad het om 'n ander pad te loop, sou julle?
Ons maak nog werk. Hoekom die mense het vir ons werk? Nou, hulle maak hier. Ons kan nie highway maak wat ons werk nie. Hoekom ons moet ons rigte watts in die ogen, want ons in die Texas in klim. En wanneer ons so huis toe kom, of wanneer jy kan eens bad boys toe gaan, jy word aan bad boys druk.
It is apparent that both gangs believe that peace will not be attainable, and despite the efforts of peacemakers like Justin to bring reconciliation, the numbers of new Malightas van Sonop are steadily increasing, a sure sign of an ongoing gang war. We further investigate the reasons why the gang numbers in Port Elizabeth are increasing and speak to Eugene Africa, a former prison gang member of the 26 gang, who is ranked as the Nongidela in the number system. He explains why and how the numbers of 26 gangs are increasing in Port Elizabeth.
Die ding is die mee bro, dat olie ouens hier buitekant is ouens hier wat alaities persele. So verstaan nie. Die ouens skryf ons niks nie man. Verstaan nie. Hulle ding die nommer is 'n duidelike ding, is 26 kyk kroon is. Nee, die is 'n ou wat gedagte het. Verstaan nie. En die nommer, die ouens word gevang. En Albert Robanus is in die gevangenis. Hulle kyk 'n kroon aflus, verstaan nie. Met die ding van drugs. En die ouens hier buite versworf hy ouens aan die gevangenis. En daar's meeste van die groot koppe, die Magunyas, hy is daar in die gevangenis. Nou beseel hulle nommers uit die gevangenis uit in die gemeenskap. Verstaan? En dan nou met die ouens die buite is, hulle moet hulle gangstertjies oprig. Hulle moet hulle Malightas maak. Verstaan? Die ouens wat niks weet nie. Nou bedrieg hulle die klein leitjies. Verstaan? Om agterna wil jy kan jy sê Malightas van Sonop. Sien nie, ek kom eens koor dat jy deze interview staan posie. Ek gaan 'n paar Nikes koop, 'n paar tydelike Levi jeans koop, 'n lekker tydelike sweater koop. Nie warm nie man. So kyk na jou. Sien nie, hy kom en hy sielkundige gedagte.
As a Nongidela in the number and in prison, it was his job to educate new 26s in the way of the number and has been responsible in recruiting hundreds of new 26s. He says 3 years ago, after being released from prison, he decided to leave the gang system and now works with Justin at Endangered Species to try and undo some of the mistakes of the past.
Dit was my werk gewees in die gangsterism en 26 nommer om ouens te leer aangaande die wet aan die werke en die bestaan nie van die nommer 26. Wat moet jy maak, wat kan jy nie maak nie, hoe moet jy loop, hoe moet jy sit, hoe moet jy opstaan, hoe moet jy praat met ouens, hoe moet jy praat met mense wat die ouens is, wat Frans is, verstaan, jy moet hy ouens Robanus my onderrig aangaande die nommer 26. Dit was my werk gewees in die kamp.
Justin and several reformed gang members regularly embark on outreach programs in the communities like Helenvale, which is one of the areas hardest hit by the scourge of gangsterism. But despite their best efforts at bringing peace and calling for a ceasefire, the gang violence in this area continues. Sean Tarantal is a former gang leader of the Boomshakas. While he is committed to the vision of endangered species, he believes that often the peace agreements are used by the gangs to outwit their rivals.
Jy sien die probleem met die vrede is, die ouetjies gebruik die vrede as opportunity om mekaar mak te maak, om hulle arsenale weer op te bou, because die polisie se oë is van hulle af. En hulle gebruik hy geleentheid om mekaar mak te maak. So jy kom in my territory, dan gaan ek jou inkry, soos hulle sê, die woord op die straat is gaan jou inkry. Dan word jy geskiet, dan word die ouetjies doodgeskiet. Van die hy's nou te mak en voel gemakkelijk om te loop in 'n area of 'n plek waar hy nie behoort nie. Ek sal nie sê nie waar hy nie behoort nie, maar waar hy weet hy ken nie gegaan het voorheen nie. Nou dis hulle ding. Hulle maak vrede om mekaar mak te maak.
The reasons why the gang violence continues to flare in communities like Ellenvale can be attributed directly to the high levels of unemployment in this area. Drug peddling becomes a means of survival, and gangs offer teenage gang members protection and a family structure that they lack. It is a Saturday afternoon in Galvindale, and the South African Police Service are preparing to raid some of the notorious gang areas in Port Elizabeth. Special Assignment joined the raid in Port Elizabeth. This is part of the police's strategy to eradicate gangsterism across the country. But it seems that much more needs to be done.
You record the particulars as the colonel said after completion of this operation.
The province, especially the Premier, is now involved so that we can have an integrated approach to addressing the issues here. The policing on its own will not bring down gangsterism in these areas. There has to be development. People must find jobs. People must find something that they can do besides just sitting and getting hooked on drugs and alcohol.
The first area that SABC raids is a known drug post in Ellenvale, and although no arrests are made, several bags of dagga are confiscated. The next stop is Galvindale, and the gang unit infiltrate a tavern allegedly run by the Upstand Dogs. No drugs are found on the premises. They then move to Shorterville to raid a drug post allegedly belonging to the Asheen gang, and although tick and mandrax are found in this drug post, no arrests are made. According to SABC, the locals in this area are known to protect the gang's interests by hiding the drugs in their homes, making it difficult for arrests to be made.
One of the other intentions of this type of operations is to make sure that the criminals are never comfortable. They mustn't know when the police will strike. They must just know that the police will come at any given moment in time, so that it assists with keeping the levels of crime down. We have seen with this type of operations where we arrest criminals who are particularly involved in the killings and other forms of contact crime. Then once they are behind bars, the levels of crime will go down.
Gang researcher Branton Jonas recently completed a thesis on the gang problem in the Eastern Cape. He shares the view that policing alone will not curb the spread of gangs in Port Elizabeth.
The Los Angeles situation, for instance, it was found that non-governmental organizations has taken the initiative to provide exit strategies for gangs. Because it's inevitable if government does not, or civil society does not take responsibility to provide alternatives to people trapped in gangsterism, that it will only get worse.
He also believes that the El Salvador gang intervention model can work in Port Elizabeth, as seen in a peace agreement that was reached between the gangs in 2012.
El Salvador, for instance, the authorities now started to realize the power of negotiations with gangs, trying to reduce gang fatalities and not recognizing or legitimizing the gangs per se, but to fundamentally move away from the thinking that you can only manage gang conflict through very robust policing.
A few weeks after our interview with the Nice Time kids that we interviewed, one of them associated to this group was shot and is now in critical condition in hospital. A vivid reminder of the reality of the danger that the Malightas van Sonop face on the streets. And as is evident in the graffiti on the names of the fallen that are etched on the pavement and on the walls, life in Helensvale continues to go on a daily basis, as they are aware of the constant danger lurking in their lives.